الحمد لله الذي له جنود السماوات والأرض وهو العزيز الحكيم وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله العلي الكريم والصلاة والسلام على نبينا مولانا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قد أفلح من زكاها وقد خاب من دساها وقال رسول الله صلى الله تعالى عليه وسلم ألا إن في الجسد مضغة إذا صلحت صلح الجسد كله وإذا فسدت فسد الجسد كله ألا وهي الخلق صدق الله العظيم. Respectful honorable friends, dear guests, and mothers and sisters listening at home. Inshallah, the period between Asr and Maghrib has been designated for the Islahi side of things and an introduction to Tasawwuf for those who are either unaware what Tasawwuf is or those who know what Tasawwuf is but may have some misconceptions of what Tasawwuf is. Inshallah, throughout this program, we'll get a better idea of an understanding of Tasawwuf, as well as the need of Tasawwuf. The time we have is also quite short. When we talk about Tasawwuf and mention Tasawwuf, unfortunately, there are those who feel that Tasawwuf is something that has been invented, or that Tasawwuf is something which is not part of the Shariat, or that what is the need for Tasawwuf. And among some common misunderstandings or questions that a person has pertaining to Tasawwuf is where people ask and question that was there such thing as Tasawwuf during the time of the Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala, what about the Tabi'een, and from when did Tasawwuf come about, and is Tasawwuf part of Shariat or is it Bid'at even? So these are the types of questions that a person has. And the reason why we have these doubts and questions is because during the time of the Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala, we don't hear the terminology of actual Tasawwuf. We don't hear of the Sahaba practicing Tasawwuf. So we wonder, we think that this is a new concept. Whereas what we don't realize is that Tasawwuf, what we now in our terminology we term Tasawwuf, was part of the lives of the Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala anhu. It was never anything separate from their lives. And because it wasn't something separate from their lives, there was no need for it to be termed as a totally different field or a different science, because Tasawwuf was found within their lives. It is later on where people sort of changed, and Deen didn't become Deen, you can say, where Deen is everything of a person's life, where matters of Deen became choosy and that. That's when we find that Tasawwuf, spirituality, this started leaving the lives of people. Whereas prior to that, Tasawwuf, Reformation, spirituality, Ruhaniyah, these things were part of a person's life. It wasn't separated, it wasn't anything different from what they had. It is you and I who have changed this, and we have removed that from the Shariat, removed that from our lives. And because of that, now Tasawwuf has become a total special or a total separate science, and you have different people specifically inclined towards Tasawwuf or practicing in Tasawwuf. Whereas, dear friends, the reality is that when it comes to Tasawwuf, Tasawwuf is something that each and every single believer has to have. Each and every single believer has to have Tasawwuf. In order to be a true believer, there is no separation of Tasawwuf from a person's life. Without Tasawwuf, a person cannot be a true believer. And this is reality. And you will find that where we today look at different people, and at times we hear of their actions and what they are up to, whether that person is a learned one or a non-learned believer, or with different ranks of believers, and we hear or see of the evil deeds and actions, and we wonder that being a believer, how can a Muslim carry out such a deed? How can even a learned person do something as bad as this? All these flaws that come in our actions and in our deeds, or even in our aqeedah, is all due to this lack of ruhaniya, spiritualism in our lives. So from this we understand how important it is for us to have the spirituality, this tasawwuf in our lives, and link with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Qur'an himself mentions to us, as I had said to you, قَدْ أَفْلَهَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا وَقَدْ خَابَ مَنْ دَسَّاهَا. Where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, قَدْ أَفْلَهَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا وَقَدْ خَابَ مَنْ دَسَّاهَا, that indeed has acquired success. Who? مَنْ زَكَّاهَا, the one who has reformed himself. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself is saying that the one who acquires success is the one who zakkaha, who has reformed himself, who has made his tazkiyah. Tazkiyah means purification. And what is tasawwuf? Tasawwuf is tazkiyah, it is purification. So it is something that goes back to when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed the Qur'an and said, Man zakkaha. And when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala even describes to us the purpose of the ba'asat, meaning the prophethood of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ. From the things that Nabi Kareem was sent for, وَيُعَلِّمُهُمُ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحِكْمَةَ وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ. Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was sent, يَتْلُوا عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتِكَ, to recite the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to the companions, and to teach them the kitab, to teach them hadith. And وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ, he came in order to purify them. So who can say that there was no tasawwuf during the time of the Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala? When one of the missions of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam was yuzakkihim, so for him to fulfill that yuzakkihim, there had to be tazkiyah, there had to be tasawwuf. Otherwise, if we claim that there was no such thing as tasawwuf, or no such thing as islah during the time of the Sahaba, then that means, Na'uzubillah, Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam failed to complete the purpose of why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had sent him. And one of his purposes was yuzakkihim, to do tazkiyah, to purify and to change the hearts of the Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala. And why was this necessary? Because we all know that the Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala, who became what? They were the Khairul Qurun, the best era, the best of people. They were the companions of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It is through them that we find knowledge has reached us. Today in the morning session, you read our hadith. The hadith that we heard this morning, and that we should continue to hear. Where did these hadiths come from? These hadiths came to us from the Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala anhu. They were the first recipients of the hadith of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They were the first recipients of the ayat in the revelation of the Qur'an. Now it was essential that those people should be of that caliber and worthy of maintaining the hadith and the Qur'an in their hearts, so that this can be passed on accordingly. And as I mentioned to you after Fajr, that knowledge is something which is nur. One is ilm nabuwat, the other is nur nabuwat. The ilm, this knowledge of nabuwat, and along with it comes the nur of nabuwat, the light of nabuwat as well, and this comes through knowledge. And this light is something that has to do with the internal self. Light and nur of nabuwat is in the heart. So for that nur of nabuwat to be in the heart needs to be of that caliber as well. If the Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala, if their tazkiyah had not taken place, then their past habits, their past aqeedah beliefs would have remained with them. And if that would have been the case, then you will find that 2 and 4. Then what would have happened is that they would have concocted and mixed a lot of the ayahs of the Qur'an and the Hadeeth out with various other things if they were not sincere in their intentions. And this sincerity in their intentions, the cleansing of the heart so that the heart can now maintain and look after the Hadith of Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and the ayahs of the Qur'an, this came about through the tazkiyah that Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam did. The Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala, prior to Islam, when we read and we hear about history, we come to know that their lives were very different to how it became, which we read in books like the Hadeeth Sahaba, the lives of the Sahaba. And remember, when we read the books, the Hadeeth Sahaba, this was their life after Islam. Prior to Islam, the Sahaba were from the worst of people with regards to their aqeedah, their belief, with regards to their actions and the crime and things that they would do, sinning and that. They were from the worst of people. All the different haram things, all the evil and vice and corruption was rife during the time of the Sahaba. This means prior to Islam. From the Sahaba, there were those very few who didn't worship idols. Besides, the majority of them even worship idols. So it shows that for them to be worshipping idols, because not all of them were Ahl Kitab. Especially the Sahaba who were from Makkah al-Mukarramah, they were idol worshippers. They were not from the Ahl Kitab even. So for them to be worshipping idols, it means that they had shirk. And shirk which is from the Kaba'ir. Shirk which is from the Kaba'ir, from the major sins. This is what they were involved in. And where is shirk and where is tawheed? A big difference. The Ahl Kitab, at least, they had the element of tawheed. Although there might have been other things of how they regarded Sayyidina Uzair to be the son of Allah, Sayyidina Isa to be the son of Allah, which were elements of shirk. But they still had that concept of tawheed in them. But the mushrikeen of Makkah, in them, there was no element of tawheed whatsoever. They just believed in idols. So there was shirk in the heart. So where there was shirk and where tawheed, a big difference. Now for that individual who believes or believed in so many different deities, that if I want prosperity in my business, then I need to worship this idol. If I want prosperity with regards to marriage, I need to worship this idol. For various needs, for different needs, I need to go to and ask from different idols. I say different idols for different needs. So for them, their whole lives were around this shirk, and where their beliefs were so concocted. When it came to superstitions, they believed in so many superstitions as well. As people today believe in superstitions, Friday the 13th, or seeing a black cat running across the road, or walking on a ladder, and these type of things. The Sahaba, they were involved in these things as well. That the month of Safar was something that was cursed. So in this way, there were a lot of things which were totally away from Tawheed. Now all of a sudden for them to come into the fold of Islam, and now it was a case of believing in La ilaha illallah. That now all these idols, they all are broken, and all these idols are gone from our lives. And now it is just one Allah. We believe in only one. So when we need to ask, for whatever we need to ask, it is just the one Allah that we're going to ask from now. And when we need something, it is only one Allah. When something happens, good or bad, it is only in the hands of one Allah. And now for them to totally change their beliefs and their understanding, a process was needed. And that process, dear friends, is the process of tazkiyah. And that was the point of tazkiyah. That the Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala, by bringing iman, then gradually the ahkam of the Qur'an were revealed. So when salah was revealed, they started performing the salah. Then when later on Sawm was the command of Sawm came, they started practicing the Sawm. Later on, prior to death on the week of some Hajj, they started doing the Hajj. So in this way, when it came to the ibadat, the practices, these came gradually during a period of time. The ayahs of the Qur'an were revealed gradually as well. So a gradual change came about them with regards to their practices in Deen. And these were the easier things to do. Why? Because it was just a case of physically learning something new, physically standing and performing salah, as you and I as well. We will stand and perform our salah. So for us to perform the salah is not difficult. In Madinah al-Munawwara, the munafiqeen also came in Masjid al-Nabawi and performed salah. So for a person to perform the salah is fine. But the Muslims were performing salah in Madinah al-Munawwara, but they were performing salah with iman in their hearts. The mushrikeen were performing salah, but they were performing salah with kufr in their heart. Now the salah was the same. They performed salah in the same way that nobody would know whether they are believers or not. A non-believer who has learned the salah comes into our masjid, reads salah with us, we won't know that this person isn't a Muslim. Why? Because he's performing salah exactly the way we are. But what's in the heart we do not know. So in this way, to physically bring something, a change in our lives, that isn't so difficult. But it is changing what is in the heart that is most difficult. The same Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala, who were so accustomed to worshipping those idols that were in the Baytullah, in the Kaaba. Now for them to stand in front of the Kaaba and perform salah excluding those idols and only having one Allah in the heart, this was a transformation that needed to be done. And if we think that the Sahaba and they just changed overnight, they were human beings at the end of the day. We have to remember that they were human beings just like you and I are. They had the same temptations and desires as we have. But even more because of the environment that they lived in. And they were accustomed to all the evil that was around at that time. So they were the same. But the change came about them because they were the ones who were chosen for as companions of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the change came about in them so unique because it was Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam who did their tazkiyah. So obviously, according to how strong the Shaykh is, his disciples are going to be the same as well. So the Sahaba reached the position of radiyallahu anhu wa radu an because of whose tarbiyah, of whose reformation they were under. Because of their Shaykh, their murshid, being of the caliber of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they became what they did. But do not think that they just change overnight. That isn't the case. If they were changed overnight, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would not have said to Nabi Kareem وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ that he needs to make the tazkiyah. Now let us think about it ourselves. For those who are born Muslims, we still haven't changed our lives. Our hearts haven't changed. Those who are born and bred Muslim, but still you will find the aqidah asal corrupt. We become ill, we eat something, we become ill, we'll say we became ill because of that what we ate. We go to the doctors gives them some medication, we feel better, we think it is a doctor who gave me cure and it is a medicine that gave me cure. And this is the aqidah of who? Born and bred Muslims. So for those people who their entire lives believed in shirk, do we think that just overnight the lives changed and the hearts changed? No, it didn't at all. And this change came about in them through وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ, through reformation. It was how Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam then made tazkiyah on them, changed their understanding, changed their hearts, and in that purified their hearts. Because prior to that, they all suffered from pride. As every human being has pride in the heart. Every human being has hasad, jealousy in the heart, self-pride in the heart, anger, enmity, malice. These sort of things are natural in the life of a believer, of a human being. And when that is the case with a human being, the Sahaba were human beings as well. They were not angels and they did not come with such characteristics of an angel. But they had the same in their hearts as well. And it is through وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam making the tazkiyah that it changed their lives to what we know of. And this changing of the inner self, the spiritual self, this entire process is what we call Tasawwuf today. In that time it was not called Tasawwuf, it was tazkiyah. And it wasn't anything, as I mentioned to you, different at all. As I mentioned to you, today it has become something different. Where we have a specific place, like a Zawiya or a Khanga, where people go specifically for Tasawwuf. You'll have Mashayikh of Tasawwuf. and you have people who are inclined towards Tasawwuf, who are in Tasawwuf. At that time there weren't such categories at all, because Tazkiyah was part and parcel of the mission of Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And the whole entire life, along with him teaching the Sahaba the ayahs of the Qur'an, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from them, his entire life went in the Tazkiyah of the Sahaba. Hence when you see the books of Hadeeth, all the riwayahs in the Hadith are all what Tazkiyah. He's making the Tazkiyah of the Sahaba. He's teaching them to that extent that, look, when you go to the toilet, how do you go to the toilet? He's teaching them how to eat, how to drink, how to believe. Besides those ahadith which has to do with ibadat, there he is teaching us the ahkam, the laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, how we need to carry out the various ibadat. And it is from those ahadith that we have fiqh today. Fiqh has come from those ahadith. Take those ahadith out, you'll find there's so many ahadith just with regards to adab, etiquettes, and with regards to just normal things as belief in Allah. When Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, if you open the books of Hadith, you have an entire chapter on zuhud, abstinence. You have an entire chapter on taqwa. You have an entire chapter on khawf, fear of Allah. You have an entire chapter on raja, hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And a whole chapter on sabr, patience. So in this way you have chapters and chapters of all these different characteristics. And what are all these things? All these things are to do with tazkiyah. They have nothing to do with ibadat. You open the book of Hadith, and now you start reading the chapter of zuhud, abstinence. Or you read the chapter of patience, sabr. It has nothing to do with fiqh in it. It's not showing us that how we need to be doing the hajj, how we need to be giving our zakat, how we need to be performing the salah. None of those ahadith have indication towards hakam, laws which are farz or important upon us. Then what were the purposes of all these ahadith? The purpose of all these ahadith were وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ, to do the tazkiyah of the Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala anhu. That whereas before, when it came to certain things, when it came to their beliefs, first of all there was no tawheed in the hearts. So there is all those ahadith with regards to tawheed, and all those ahadith with regards to the harms and the evil of shirk. Why? Again, to rectify their beliefs in the heart. Then there's all the ahadith to do with khawf, fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So before, people, they would fear maybe just consequences. They may fear that black cat that goes past. They may fear the harm of a person. They may fear the evil of people. These were the things that they feared, but they didn't fear any being. And now those ahadith are there in order to create in the hearts the fear. If there is fear, then in the heart there should be only fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When it comes to hope, their hope is not in the lottery ticket. The hope is not in horoscopes. Their hope is not in fortune tellers. Their hope is not in what they see in the stars. Whereas these were the things that they had hope in. وَلَا سَفْرَ وَلَا طِيَرَ, where if they wanted to undertake a journey or undertake a task, they would let birds off and see in which direction those birds would fly. If it went in the opposite direction, now they would fear that now some harm will befall us, or we won't find success in what we're going to do. So this is how the aqidah was. So all those ahadith to do with hope is to show them that look, hope is only in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then you have all the ahadith to do with tawakkul, having trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Where before, their trust would be in the idols. Whichever idol was there for that purpose, they would go to that idol. They would place various givings and blessings by that idol. Now the hope would be that because of this, or they would make some sacrifice on the name of the idol. So that through the sacrifice of that idol, they had hope that our task will be fulfilled. And Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam then mentions to them the various ahadith on tawakkul. لو أنكم تتوكلون على الله حق توكله لرزقكم كما يرزق الطير تغدو خماصا وذروه بطانا. Nabi Karim mentions that look, if you have tawakkul on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, توكلون على الله حق توكله, the way you should do, that He shall feed you the way He feeds a bird. Bird leaves a nest with an empty stomach and returns with a full belly. A bird, if you go and search into the nest, you won't find any food stored there. You won't find any fridge freezers there, where he's stocked up with food for the whole week. He has no food whatsoever. But that bird goes with an empty stomach, knowing that Allah is the one who will provide for me. He goes with an empty stomach and you find that bird comes back in the evening with a full stomach. The bird goes off and brings sustenance for the chicks in there as well. So Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, you have tawakkul, hope in Allah. He will provide for you just the way He provides for them. So again he's making tazkiyah through these ahadith. He's making tazkiyah of the Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala an, that where your tawakkul previously was directed towards the idols, or towards the flying of the birds, or to other things, now your tawakkul needs to change and come towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So all these abwab of ahadith to do with these aspects of a person's life has to do with what? Has to do with tazkiyah and purification of the heart. So from this, a few examples, and we have time constraint, it is almost time for Maghrib. We find that tazkiyah and tasawwuf existed during the time of the Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala. Tazkiyah was one of the main missions of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and all these ahadith, all have to do with him doing the tazkiyah of the Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala an. So who is there who can say that there was no such thing as tazkiyah and tasawwuf during the time of the Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala an? Nobody can at all. That is, if you understand what the purpose of tazkiyah is. If we think, and I'll end on this, our misconception is we think tasawwuf is what? We think tasawwuf is what? Just the whirling dervishes. This is what we think tasawwuf is. We think tasawwuf is just sitting with a big tasbih and doing zikr of Allah. We think tasawwuf is just where you go and become bay'at to a shaykh. Because we think tasawwuf is only these things, that you just sit there, read du'as and this zikr and that. So because we think this is only what tasawwuf is, that's why we say, well, we didn't do these type of things during the Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala, so tasawwuf is something new. But the actual purpose of what tasawwuf is, if we understand that, then we will find and see that Nabi Kareem Sallallahu entire life, along with, but even more than teaching the Sahaba, the ahkam of ibadat was more on tazkiyah. Hence, if you see the whole treasure of ahadith that we have, the ahadith pertaining to ibadat itself is not as much as the ahadith with regards to other aspects of a person's life, and that entire aspect of a person's life, all of those has to do with the changing of an individual, and that changing of the individual, that process is what we call tazkiyah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us all understanding, and inshallah we shall continue with this throughout the course. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.